Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another edition of Chopping It Up with Ramel. Listen, we have an action-packed show this morning. We're going to talk about NFL. We're going to talk about boxing. We're going to talk about baseball playoffs. We're going to talk about the Governor of California. We're going to try to get it in. We may even have extended time. So much to talk about. Once again, I just want to thank for the ongoing support to my family, friends, and just sports fans around the world. So let's get right into it. We're going to start off with the NFL, and what a week it was. What a week it was. I had some predictions early on about the undefeated teams. Other than the Rams, my predictions was right. I thought that my Eagles would go into Green Bay and come out with a win. It wasn't pretty, but it was a win. They were losing players left and right. Maddox went out in a stretcher. A guy on Green Bay went out in a stretcher. But somehow, in a game where it just seems like Green Bay dominated, the great Aaron Rodgers, as everyone calls him, threw for 422 yards. But somehow, where the numbers mattered most, and that's the final score, the Eagles was able to come away with the victory. Primarily because of their rushing attack. Jordan Howard, who has been missing in action, MIA, and not for Miami, missing in action, came through with a clutch 87 yards, and Michael Sanders wasn't too shabby either with 72 yards. Combined, they rushed from 159 yards. The ground attack was just too much for Green Bay, and Eagles was able to secure the win on a much needed win. I'm talking about they could not afford to start the season at 1-3. So they go into Green Bay, an undefeated team, gets the win on the road. And it's funny, you see the Green Bay fans with the cheese heads, and you see the Philly fans talking about Philadelphia cream cheese. That's just your Philadelphia fans. The Eagle fans will be Eagles fans. I tell you, there's no crazier fans or set of fans than Philadelphia sports fans. It's just no crazier fans. But great win by Philadelphia. It wasn't one of those spectacular games by Wentz. But you know what? He managed the game well. He did what he needed to do to get the win. The defense, as I said, Maddox was getting torched all game. I hope he's okay as he went out on the stretcher. But when the defense needed a big play, they came up with a big play. When the defense, let me repeat that, when the Eagles defense needed a big play, whether it was the strip sack on Rodgers or just at the end of the game, the interception down at the goal line. Now, I thought I would never see a play like that again after the Seattle interception in the Super Bowl at the goal line. But you know what? History has a way of repeating itself. And in this case, as an Eagle fan, I take that play and that interception. Great win by the Eagles, setting up a little bit of a thriller in the East because, as I predicted, I thought the Cowboys would go into the Saints and lose. I didn't think it was going to be a snooze fest, but I thought that the Cowboys would lose down in New Orleans. I thought Terry Bridgewater would have a breakout game. That really didn't happen. He managed the game. He did enough to keep them in field goal range so that they could come away with a 12-10 victory with 4 field goals. It was a defensive match on both sides of the ball. That Robert Quinn on the Dallas Cowboys, he couldn't be stopped. I got to call it for what it is. He could not be stopped. I'm sure Teddy Bridgewater is having nightmares. Hey, I got to call him. You're on the air. We're chopping it up with Ramel. Who's on the line?
Good morning to you, Cowboys for life, babe. What's good?
Sean Hood.
All the time.
Ladies and gentlemen out there, the chopping it up, Ramel fans, Sean Hood perhaps may be the biggest Dallas Cowboy fan that I know. And it's not surprising that I get a call from him Let's hear what he has to say this morning. How are you, Sean?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I just like to be respected as the #1 Cowboy fan in this side of the country. So I mean, it never stops. It won't stop. Can't stop.
So,
hey, family, what's good? You good, man?
I'm very good. Just talking. I was just on the subject of the Dallas Cowboys. How I predicted they were going to go into New Orleans and lose. I didn't think the game was going to be a snooze fest, but I was actually in sentence and stride of complimenting the play of Robert Quinn. This guy was an animal out there the other night. I mean, he just was going after it. He could not be blocked. He could not be stopped. He could not be contained.
You know, it's funny you say that, T, man, because that was like one of the seemed like unnoticed or unappreciated free agent signings this past summer. It kind of went under the rug. And me personally, when I heard we signed Quinn, I'm like, okay, what did we give up? A first, a second, or a third? Man, we gave up like a 6th-round pick. We gave up a Mr. Irrelevant to get Robert Quinn. This guy, it's funny you say that because I think I reached out to somebody. I don't know if were you or somebody. I'm always one of my family members. I'm like, man, dude, listen, Quinn is all over the place. If I ain't mistaken, I think his jersey number is number 58 because, hey, he just popped out on the screen. But think about it for a second, T. Quinn's been a beast with the Rams and with the Dolphins. He's one of, when it comes out of current defensive ends that's playing currently right now, I think when it comes down to total sacks, Troy, you can look at it, family. I think he's in the top 2 or 3 right now that's currently playing to have total sacks in their career.
Yeah,
I mean, he got crazy numbers.
It's amazing to see the way he played the other night that he was even available for trade. I mean, he looks like he's a guy that you just want to keep on your roster until he's ready to hang up the cleats. He really looked very strong. He got after it, and as I mentioned moments ago, I'm sure Bridgewater had nightmares of him that night.
No doubt, man. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm a huge fan and supporter of DeMarcus Lawrence. But this cat's quicker than Lawrence.
He is.
I mean, this guy is like a rubber band around the edge. He's like a rubber band.
He
They
is.
were showing his plays, Troy, against the Saints. And I mean, the way he was bending to come around the edge, trying to get to Bridgewater. And let me tell you something. If you want to do ticky-tack calls, you almost could have got a holding on him almost every play. I mean, because the guy was like, man, hey, he was like somebody hanging on dear for life on a cliff, trying to block this guy, man. This he's a hell of a player, man. And I'm just glad we got him on our squad. And guess what? Mr. Rogers is gonna find out Sunday, Troy, that hey, this ain't a good neighborhood to be in.
Okay, and I'm glad you went there because that was going to be later in my show. But I think that's one of the games to look out for this week. Is probably one of the big games. I think that Green Bay Packers, if they had a chance to do it all over again, they would like to have that win against Philly, where really they thoroughly outplayed Philly, and somehow or another Philly just managed to have more points than them. But I think that you're going to see a bounce back Green Bay. And with Dallas suffering their first loss of the season, and they're trying to turn around the narrative that they beat bad teams only and can't compete with the good teams, I look for them to come back and be aggressive as well. But I really think that the Packers is going to go into Jerry's World and pull out the win. Rodgers is 6-2 at Jerry's World. He averages nearly 300 yards there. He's got 15 touchdowns to 2 interceptions only. I can see Rodgers going in there and pulling out the win. But Dallas is going to be motivated. I'm sure you, as the #1 Dallas fan on this side of town, is looking at it otherwise.
Well, more importantly, T, if you want to stay on my Christmas list, man, you might want to change your opinions on air, man, because right now you're on my Christmas list, man, but I sure got a racer on my heat. I don't want to use this stress on you, man, because I ain't got that but love. But check this out. When it comes down to Cobb, I'm going to throw a name at you. Randall Cobb, former superstar with Aaron Rodgers, his #1 target. He's healthy, Troy, right now. I'm going to tell you right now, he's having a pretty decent season right now so far. I mean, he's not tearing up the league or nothing like that, man, but he's pretty solid for us right now. And I think we're going to kind of target him a little bit more to kind of let remind Green Bay, kind of like what you kind of open the door for and let walk out. He's healthy, he's quick, he's he definitely know how to catch the football. He had a one play last week where I think the ball was kind of thrown behind him, and everybody said, "Hey, it's like a golden rule for most great receivers. If you put your hands on that, means he wants to catch it." I pretty much agree with that as well. But I like Cobb a lot, man. I think Randall Cobb and my man, the defensive end Quinn. Man, that was two stellar moves we made in the offseason, kind of to tighten up our roster. But I tell you what, it's going to be a great game because, man, I have nothing but respect for Aaron Rodgers, man. This guy is magical with the football in his hands. But one thing about it, it's hard to throw the football when you're on your back. And I think he's going to be on his back this weekend.
Well, we're going to find out. I believe it's a 4:30 game. It's going to be on national TV. And why not? I mean, you're talking about two perennial franchises. And, Aaron Rodgers is definitely a darling of the league, and the Cowboys are still America's team. So it's going to be on TV. I think it'll be a good game. Even after your comments, I still think the Packers go ahead and secure that victory. And with the Eagles playing the Jets, and that should be an easy win for the Eagles. I look for the Eagles and the Cowboys to be tied since opening night in that NFC East. So it should get fun. It should start to heat up, and we'll go from there. But, Sean, I'll talk to you. I appreciate the call. And
all love, man.
Much love, man. Enjoy your day.
All right, T. Peace, bro.
And that's Mr. Sean Hood. As he announced, he's the number one Cowboy fan. And I'm going to tell you, I know a lot of Cowboy fans, from my son to some of my best friends and to my brother Sean. I mean, he's got it. He's got to be up there as probably the number one. And when he says that, this is a guy that his debit cards is Cowboys, his license plate is Cowboy, his newly bride of the last year and a half had to convert to a Cowboy fan. I mean, it's serious with him when it comes down to Cowboys. So much love to Sean. Appreciate the call. But as I was telling Sean, and I'll say it again, I do think the Packers go in there and get the win. And I think Dallas is going to find out that they're a good team, but not a great team. And I think they will struggle with teams that are on their level and maybe better than them. They're going to find that out. I mean, I like their roster. Their defense is much improved. Elliott Did the Saints just game plan for him last game? Or is this the residual of not being in training camp? Because he had 17 carries for 35 yards. You talk about shutdown. That was a total shutdown. I mean, turn the lights out. I mean, he may have had one breakaway play. In fact, the Dallas Cowboys really only had one possession where they came out and looked like a contender team. And that was their first possession in the third quarter. And ironically, it's been the best possession of the year for the Cowboys. And each game, when they come out, when they get the ball in the third quarter, maybe some rest at halftime, maybe some pep talk adjustments. But Dak and the Cowboys seem to be at their best with their first possession coming out of the break. So that's something to look at going forward. But Elliott was shut down. I mean, literally, he was shut down. And you've heard me say it, and many others have said, this is the number one back in the game. Well, I'll tell you what, he didn't look like it on Sunday night. He did not look like the number one running back on Sunday night. But who did look like the number one running back on Sunday night was Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette looked like the number one running back. Listen, I don't know what to make of Jacksonville right now. I really don't. And they're in a division with Tennessee, Houston, Indianapolis, and nobody is running away with it. I think all four teams are 2-2 in desperate need, not only of a win, but a spark and a momentum run. But this guy, Manishu, too, he did a move down at the goal line where it looks like he was playing tag or something like that. And he was just, I don't know how you describe it, but he was just bouncing from here to here, dancing from here to there, and somehow another got the touchdown. Unbelievable. Unbelievable what I saw. Leonard Fournette rushing for over 200 yards, averaging 7.8 yards per carry. Unbelievable what took place over the weekend there. Unbelievable. Talking about unbelievable, Denver went to the Super Bowl twice, probably in the last 5 years. Where are those players at? What happened to that team? What is going on? What is John Elway doing over there? These guys are 0-4. I thought they would be better than the Raiders. They're not. Talking about a team that's in desperate need of a win. What is going on with the Denver Broncos? It's one thing, you have a bad year, and it happens to a lot of great franchises, but at the end of the day, 0-4. I don't think Denver's ever started at 0-4. This reminds me of the year where Fox was over there, and he made the gutsy call to insert Tebow into the starting lineup. I think they started out 1-5 or something like that. And he got them to the playoffs. And also got a win against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The anointed one. Threw for 316 yards. So yeah, Denver's going down. I'm not sure what's happening there. But good win by Jacksonville. Like I said, Leonard Fournette, he looked like the number one back on Sunday, rushing for over 200 yards. So good win. Kansas City, the other undefeated team that I said that I thought that would go in there and beat Detroit. That happened. Detroit gave them a fight. Don't get me wrong. This wasn't one of those magical games. It's just Pat Mahomes just doing what Pat Mahomes do. Threw for over 300 yards. Gets the win on the road. First time in a dome stadium. I think everybody was looking for him to have one of them breakout games simply because weather would be a factor and this and that. But just a phenomenal game, all-around game for Kansas City. I talked about the Cowboys. One of my best friends over here is talking about Cowboys is going to beat Green Bay this weekend. I spoke on that earlier. I'm going to disagree with him. I think Green Bay goes into Jerry's world, and get another win. Rodgers has been fabulous there. He's 6-2 lifetime there. He's won 6 of his last 7 games there. He's thrown over 300 yards each game. He's got 15 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. As I predicted they would lose to the Saints, I'm predicting they will lose this week again to the Packers. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. But I would be remiss if I don't mention this guy. And this is Danny Dimes. Danny Dimes for the New York Giants. Listen, he may be the Porzingis of the New York Giants. Because when he was drafted on draft day, he was booed by millions of New Yorkers. Booed for that pick. I think everybody wanted Clint Haskins out of Ohio State. Nobody knew this guy. I mean, I even went on air talking about if you're going to draft somebody in the first round from Duke, why not draft Zion and put him at tight end? But all Danny Dimes have done is just play well. Danny Dimes is proving the critics wrong about him coming out of Duke. This guy is accurate. He's got a little mobility. And more importantly, and I think this is important. Because sometimes you can wear out your welcome. And maybe that's what happened with Eli. But the team is galvanizing around him. They really want to win for this guy. They play hard for this guy. They give him the support that he needs. Danny Dimes is galvanizing this New York Giant team. Now, granted, they played Washington. But you know what? They did it without Barkley. And to me, a young quarterback, especially a rookie quarterback, to have a Barkley in the backfield is huge. But he didn't even have Barkley in the backfield. So I got to give him credit. And the Washington Redskins, as bad as they are, they should have been playing with some kind of desperation to maybe play to rally behind their coach, because the coach is not sitting on a chair right now. If your barbecue grill is missing, it's because Jay Gruden is sitting on it. Because he's sitting on a grill. His seat is hot. And you thought they would come into Meadowlands and down Barkley. You would figure that the Giants wouldn't be that much of a threat to them. But Washington just looks awful. Just looks awful this year. Awful. I don't know who's worse. Washington, Miami, or Cincinnati. Now, some might want to include the Jets. I think the Jets is going to win some games. They're not going to win this week. That's for sure. Eagles look like they're going to get some momentum. I believe the Eagles beat up on the Jets this weekend. But Washington, you would think they play for their coach. Their coach is out of there. And, and shout out to Ed. He said that the Jets need a coach. I agree. Adam Gase is horrible. I don't know what's on his resume that gave him a job. I'm still trying to figure that out. What did he do in Miami? Nothing. Nothing. And he hasn't done anything here in New York. Looking good in the preseason doesn't count. It's the season that counts. So Danny Dimes, to my surprise, he looks like the real deal. And actually, if you're a Giant fan out there, you have reasons to be excited to see what the future can hold with him and Saquon if he can stay healthy going forward. All you have to do is get back to your glory days of drafting some defensive players, because it seems like you got away from that a little bit. But your offense, if the offensive line can hold up, your offense may have a future with Danny Dimes and Saquon Barkley. Because when Barkley is playing, you can make the case he's the number one running back in the game. I know Kamara might have something to say with that, but yeah, you can make the case. So kudos to Danny Dimes, and you know what? I got to give the Giants staff a little credit for taking a chance on a quarterback out of Duke and taking him with the number 6 pick. I think they're probably the only managerial staff that would have done that. I don't think anybody else would have done that. No, I just don't see that. So kudos to the Giants staff for doing that. We talked about the Jacksonville beating up on Denver, but I want to talk about Cleveland Browns beating up on the Ravens. The Ravens had one of the best defenses going into that weekend, and what the Cleveland Browns did on the road to the Ravens was just shred them. I mean, they had a stat that's just unbelievable, where you had a quarterback throw for over 300 yards in Baker Mayfield. You had a running back in Nick Chubbs who rushed for over 150 yards. It actually was 160 plus. And then you had a wide receiver catch in Landry for 167 yards. Unbelievable what we saw that day. What went on in that day. The Ravens, I'm not sure if they got enough rest, but the Browns came in there ready to go. And looking like the Browns that many people saw before the season started. You know, people thought going into the season there was enough talent on this Cleveland Browns team to compete to go deep into the playoffs, let alone just for a playoff, go deep into the playoffs. And then they came out the gate looking a little sluggish, this and that, and people was like, well, you're anointing them while they were on paper. But now it looks like the tides have turned. And it look like they are really putting it together with back-to-back wins here. So going forward, keep an eye on Cleveland. Cleveland might be the team that represents that division, especially if Baltimore in their upcoming game, which to me is a bigger game for Baltimore. Well, I'll say this. It's a big game for Pittsburgh as well. But if Baltimore wants to remain in that race with Cleveland, they need this win. They need this win because a loss to Pittsburgh would be 3 straight losses, and they're going in the opposite direction. So, you can understand the loss to Kansas City. You figure at home you beat Cleveland. Now they're in a position at 2-2. they got to beat Pittsburgh. They got to beat Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh, it was a cream puff. I said it, Cincinnati Bengals may be one of the weakest teams in the league, but they did what they needed to do on Monday night. They got the win. The question is, where do they go from here? Do they start a momentum? Do they keep going? Do they find ways to win, get it done? They're at home. Hold on, got a call here. Good afternoon. Chopping it up with Ramel, who's on the air.
Yo, this is DV calling in from Philly. What's going on, man?
Philly in the house. How you doing today?
Yo, I'm good. I'm feeling pretty good. My homeboy Wentz got rated the top quarterback performance through the first 4 weeks of the season. So wow. I know my boys getting ready to get their run on so we get this playoff run going.
Absolutely. I agree with that statement. Moments ago, I was just mentioning that I believe that the Eagles would shred the Jets and the Cowboys would lose to the Packers at home, and there would be a first-place tie for the division. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know what? I'm feeling you on that. I like to go ahead and claim that I support your claim that the Eagles definitely going to handle business against the Jets. And that Dallas going to do what they do, go against the top-ranked team and fold up like a chair. So, yeah, and document that, put that on record.
It's noted. Fold up like a chair, put that on record. It is noted. True Eagles fan.
Let me say I'm calling because, I'm trying to understand. I want to get your thoughts on California finally signing this law so people can get paid. And the real debate is, are they getting paid or because they get an education or should they be making a higher percentage? So let me just tell you this. I did my research yesterday. I went online to kind of see what kind of tuition these guys would be paying if they were going to, a real big name school in-state or out-of-state. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised. Like even a school like UCLA, if you live there and go to school, it's only like $10,000 a year to get your education. So you go to 4 years, it's only $40,000. That was just like maybe the tuition itself. I'm not counting like women board, all that good stuff. So I'm really kind of torn because I do think they get an education, and I don't think it really outweighs the amount of money the school makes based off of their performance when they're playing. So I need some light to kind of get your take on it and see what direction you really think this thing should go. Should it really move so they're getting a higher percentage of the profit the school is making, or really is this enough that they're getting the potential of earning money, and so the education is enough? I'll let you speak.
I thanks for the call. Don't be a stranger. But what I was going to say, I was going to get to this topic a little bit later. I'm glad you brought it up. I haven't done enough research on it, but from what I understand, I'm all for it. And what I understand is that the bill that the governor is signing is not for the schools to pay that student athletes. It's not for the schools to pay the student athlete. But what it is that, let's say EA Sports comes out with an NCAA football game for that year. In this case, 2019-2020 season. All right? You have a son that's on that team. Now, his name is not going to be on the jersey, but his number is going to be on the jersey. You know who they're referring to because that's your school, your son's school. You should get paid for that. If Nike is sponsoring your uniforms for the school that your son plays for, or your daughter plays for, if it's college basketball, whatever sport it might be, if they're selling it, even though their name is not on the jersey, but their number is being sold back there, they should get a portion of that. So what it is that they're saying that they should get paid for their likeness.
Okay.
All right. So it's not necessarily the school paying them at the gate of whatever the event is, but it should be where the sponsors. Now, I think that they should be paid at the gate. Nick Saban is a great college coach, and he's making $9 million a season. But there's not one fan that's in that stand other than maybe his wife and children that's coming to the game to see Nick Saban on the sidelines. So if we as fans are coming to this game, whether it's college football, basketball, baseball, volleyball, swimming, whatever it may be, track and field, tennis, whatever's at the gate, I think these athletes should get a percentage of the gate. And I don't think the swimmers should be paid like the football players because football generates more, but I think that they should all get paid a percentage of what comes through the gate because that stadium that is filled every week is not because of the coach who's making $9 million, $5 million, or the AD that's making $4 or $5 million a year. It's those players that are getting $30,000 a year for a scholarship, but most of them don't even use the scholarship.
Okay.
So this bill that was signed, it goes in effect in 2023 in the state of California. Now, it probably got some T's that need to be crossed and some I's that needs to be dotted, but it is the first step in the right direction, in my opinion, to seeing that these athletes get some kind of compensation because at the end of the day, they're putting their livelihoods on the line for an interview to get to the next level, and it's only a small percent that make it to the next level.
Cool. All right, then. Thank you. Appreciate the insight, man. Fly, Eagles, fly.
All right. I appreciate your call. Don't be a stranger. From one Eagle fan to the next, fly, Eagles, fly. Fly, Eagles, fly.
You get from Philly, baby.
All right. Thanks for the call. And that was Deezy, Dustin, giving us a call. First time caller. Appreciate it. Had a lot of insight to talk about. He had some concerns about the legislature that was signed in California by the governor, and rightfully so. And I think it's the great first step in the right direction. And I tell you what, if some of these states don't get on board with this, what you're going to find is that nearby states may lose student athletes to California schools. Because if I'm a high school senior that is really sought after and highly recruited, and I can go free 4-year scholarship at Arizona or Arizona State, but UCLA or Pepperdine or USC or Stanford is calling me as well, and I know I can go there, be the same star player in California as I would be in Arizona, and get money for my jersey, for my likeness, and still send money home back to my family that might be in need, I'm going to California. I'm going to California. As simple as that. I'm going to California. If Syracuse basketball team offers me a free ride for 4 years to come play basketball, but UCLA or USC is offering me the same, but yet I can get paid for my likeness, and also may enjoy 70-degree weather in the wintertime opposed to maybe 4 feet of snow, I'm heading to California. So if other states don't get on board with the program, how many recruits will they lose? You know, you hear so many times student athletes talking about, yeah, I'm not going to fulfill my 4 years here because I'm not turning down this money in the NBA or the NFL, whatever it might be. If it's a case that they need money and they going premature because really they're not ready, now they can go to a school, get some money that might be enough to take their family back home, and yet still get the coaching, the training, the maturing, and the condition they need that maybe a year, 2, 3 years later, they'll be ready for their prospective career. So yes, I'm in favor of this. Kudos to the governor. I think is a great move. I saw that he announced it on LeBron's show. I saw that LeBron, he said he had something to do with it, was instrumental. Even LeBron, the great LeBron, said had they had this in effect in his home state, he may have went to Ohio State to play basketball. And his reason for that is that if he knew he can get paid for his likeness, then he didn't have to worry about going to get the money right away to try to take care of home. He could have sent some money to take care of home, got a little bit of coaching, a little bit of conditioning before going to the league. And you say, well, he's not a good example. Well, yeah, he's still a good example. Why? Him and Carmelo Anthony comes out in the same draft class. And clearly, he's had the better career than Carmelo. He's the better player than Carmelo. And there's no knock on Carmelo. And I'm not trying to bring LeBron down. He's a great player. But Carmelo went to Syracuse for 1 year. When he was drafted, he went to a team that was 17-65. And Carmelo took them from his rookie year to 8 straight playoffs runs. In the West, where you had the Lakers and Shaq and Kobe, you had Tim Duncan, Parker and Ginobili, and you had Sacramento Kings. He took them to 8 straight playoffs as a rookie, 8 straight years. LeBron missed the playoffs his first year. Morning. He missed the playoff his first year. So maybe 1 year in college could have helped LeBron. Maybe that 1 year that Melo did at Syracuse made him ready to lead a 17-65 team to 8 straight playoffs. So yes, I see his point. And he could have benefited, as great as he is, he could have benefited from college. Kobe Bryant did not start his first year when he got to the league. Great player, straight out of high school. Could he have benefited from a year from Duke or something like that? Absolutely. 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 So kudos once again to the governor for signing the bill in the state of California. And he may not be that, how can I say it? It's also a great move for his state because he might start getting the best recruits starting in 2023. Because if you can get paid for your likeness, once again, players is probably gonna go to California to play their prospective ball, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, tennis, whatever it might be, swimming, track and field, whatever it might be. So I do have a question. Does the Chicago Bears have the best D in football? What they put on display the other day, was just remarkable. Led by Khalil Mack. I mean, he just brings the wood. That Chicago Bears team, I don't know if they're going to be better under Chase Daniels. They're probably looking for a story like the Nick Foles story when Wentz went out. But right now, their defense, I'll put them up against anyone. I mean, the Buffalo Bills showed some heart going up against New England. I knew New England would win that game. Their front seven is good. New England's defense is strong. I mean, after 4 games, I think they've only given up 2 touchdowns. New England's defense is very strong. You got some good defenses out there. But that Chicago Bears defense, that's a monster. It's a monster. It is a monster. We're going to move right along. I'm getting into, let's look at the games to watch for next week. I'm curious to see what happens with Tampa Bay and New Orleans. Because Winston came off a great game where he outdid the 500-plus yards of Jared Goff out in Los Angeles to pull off and put up 55 points. Now, Jared Goff threw a lot of passes, threw a lot of interceptions too. But Jameis Winston, it's got to be the Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde. One game, he looks like Warren Moon. The next game, he looks like Jamarcus Russell. I'm not sure what's going on with him. Maybe he's his own problem. But I tell you what, he has the talent. He has the goods. He has the it to get it done. He just needs to package it and bring it every week. This is a solid quarterback. Remember, he's a national champion in college. The guy is a solid player. It's just a matter of which Winston shows up. But the Tampa Bay New Orleans game, and anytime you have an end division game, it's always going to be a tough game. This one is down in New Orleans. I look for Teddy Bridgewater. This would be the game he has his breakout game. He's going to have his breakout game against Tampa Bay. With Tampa Bay being up and down, I mean, this is a team that lost to San Francisco. And not to say anything about San Francisco, but week 1, San Francisco goes into their house and win. And San Francisco has been quite a good story thus far. They've been a good story thus far. They're 3-0. I don't think anybody saw that coming in San Francisco. They did go into Tampa Bay and get the win. But then Tampa Bay, they beat up on Carolina. Then they lose to the Giants. Danny Dimes, first game as a rookie. Barkley gets hurt, goes out the game. They lose that. And then they turn around and put up 55 against the Rams. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like I said, one week, Winston is Warren Moon, and the next week is Jamarcus Russell. What are we to make of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Jameis Winston? What are we to make of that? So that's a good game to watch out for. Buffalo against Tennessee. And a good friend of mine named Tico, always talking about Tennessee. That's his team. I don't know what to make of Tennessee. I think they have enough to compete for a playoff. They just don't bring it every week. This will be a good match for them. They're at home. Buffalo does bring the wood with their front seven. Offense is a little bit shaky. But this is going to be a big game. This is going to tell me if either team is for real or not. If Buffalo can pull off this win on the road after losing to New England, I'm going to say Buffalo is for real this year. Because sometimes you find out who you are during adversity. They lost the quarterback. They lost the game. They lost their undefeated season. But to go on the road and get back to winning ways would be impressive for Buffalo Bills. And I don't think anybody had Buffalo Bills other than Buffalo Bills fans as a playoff contender this year. So if they can go into Tennessee and get that win, that'd be impressive. But on the other hand, in a division where everybody's 2-2, this could be a game that Tennessee gets this victory, and maybe they can take claim of first place or share some claim of first place and maybe get on a roll. So I think this game is a very good game to watch, probably have some significance involved in it. But I think Tennessee pulls out the win because they're at home. But it's going to be fun to watch. And I'm going to go with Tennessee getting the win on that one. You have the Rams in Seattle tomorrow night. That should be a good game. Rams in Seattle tomorrow night should be a good game. It's in Seattle. I'm a little curious to see what the Rams is going to do, considering they had that loss at home, and now it's a short week. They're on the road. Seattle, they got to win. I look for Seattle to secure this win. I really do. I'm not saying that Russell Wilson is the best quarterback out there. And I'm not saying he's not capable of losing a game. But I ain't betting against Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is a winner. I've said that time and time again. I am not betting against Russell Wilson. He is a winner. I like them at home tomorrow night on a short week. I think they get it done. We talked about Green Bay and Dallas. Another big game. The Ravens going into Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh looking to get into their winning ways. They won a big game last Monday night. I think that Pittsburgh season is on the line. If they want to make a playoff push, They cannot afford to go 1-4. I look for them to come out swinging at home and take care of business. Baltimore Ravens is going the opposite way. That first 2 weeks of the season, when I was hooping and hollering about they made the right decision with Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson is Michael Vick 2.0, I still believe they made the right decision. I still believe he's 2.0, but I do believe they need this win minorly. They need this win. This is a big game for them. This is probably the first time that Lamar Jackson in the NFL had to deal with this much adversity, losing 2 in a row, and after being the darling of the first 2 weeks, and getting a pass for losing to Pat Mahomes. But the way they lost to Mayfield, now they're on the road. They got to come out swinging. This is going to be a big game. I think it's going to be a defensive game, but I think Pittsburgh prevails at home against Baltimore. But it should be a good game. The 49ers, for me, this is going to be a big game for me with the 49ers and the Browns. And let me tell you why. First of all, Cleveland Browns is coming off a fantastic victory against the Ravens. They now go on the road, and I believe it's a Monday night game, and they play the San Francisco 49ers. I was told before the season started by a good friend, he said, watch out for the 49ers. So I've been paying attention to them. I think the worst thing that happened to the 49ers, and you have to walk with me on this, is that they got a bye week early in the season. I don't think they needed that bye week. If anybody who knows me well, they know I always say this. Sometimes momentum can outweigh talent. They have momentum. They won their first 3 games, and now they got a bye week. I think that bye week might hurt their momentum. I can see Cleveland going into San Francisco after that sensational win last week. I can see Cleveland going into San Francisco and pulling out the win. Not because Cleveland's the better team, not that San Francisco is a bad team, just because that bye week might have interfered with their momentum. And you know what? When you're on a roll, you don't want to sit down. You don't want to sit down. It's like being at a party. The music is good. You dancing. You getting your boogie on. Whether it's the 2-step or whatever else is, whatever you do best. And then by the time you know you're sweating, you took your jacket off, put your drink down. 10 songs, man, going through. And then this bad song come on. You look at the DJ like, what? And then maybe a song or 2 later, another one of your jams come on and you just can't get back up. You're like, I'm going to sit this one out. Sometimes momentum can follow you through. And that bad song that they put on and made you go sit down is the bye week to the San Francisco 49ers. I'm afraid. Excuse me. I'm afraid for the 49er fans this week. I think they take their first L of the season just because of that. Cleveland is looking to go in there and make a name for themselves. Nobody had San Francisco being a 3-0 team but San Francisco fans. I think this would be a big win for Cleveland to go out there on Monday night or Sunday night, whichever night it is, and get this win. I look for Cleveland to beat San Francisco. All right, it's that time of the year for all you baseball fans out there. Major League Baseball is back in effect. They're with the playoffs. And I'm going to tell you, Milwaukee and Washington had a game yesterday, the play-in game or the one-game playoff. Washington secured that. So now Washington goes and plays the Dodgers. You got St. Louis playing Atlanta. I really think that it's going to be Atlanta and the Dodgers battling it out to go to the World Series. And those who heard me talk before, I believe that the Atlanta Braves will represent the National League in the World Series. I just think that the Dodgers, somebody tell the Dodgers, it's hard to play professional sports with a necktie on. Hey, I'm talking sports and I don't have a necktie on. It's hard to play professional sports with a necktie on because you might choke. And that's what I think of the Dodgers. They're a bunch of chokers. A bunch of chokers. Atlanta Braves is a team, as a Met fan, I hate to say this, But the Atlanta Braves is going to be a team to be reckoned with for the next 5 years. They got youth, they got veteran, they got speed, they got power, they got clutchness. They have it all. Their weakness is maybe the back end of their rotation, but a back end of their pitching staff. But quiet as kept, they got a solid team that's going to compete for at least the next 5 years. It's going to go through the Braves, through the National League going forward. I have the Braves representing the National League in the World Series. On the other hand, in the American League, it's up for grabs. And again, as a Met fan, I hate to say this, but when it's all said and done, it doesn't matter who wins today with Oakland and Tampa Bay. That doesn't matter. The winner gets Houston. They're going to lose to Houston. Minnesota's going to play the Yankees. Keep an eye on this series. This one here in a short series might have 100 home runs. The Minnesota Twins had over 300 home runs as a team this year. You're talking about knocking it out the park. No one has done it better. I don't know if the balls are juiced or what, or the guys are just stronger, or the pitchers are weaker. But at the end of the day, they had over 300 home runs as a team this year. Pretty impressive. But that means nothing. Because Houston is going to beat the winner of today. The Yankees is going to beat Minnesota. The Yankees is going to beat Houston. And as a Met fan, it pains me to say that one of our biggest rivals in the National League, in our division, who actually killed our season when it came to Shea and swept us for 3 games, had us with our heads down, and then we turned around and got swept by the Cubs for 3 games, and our season was lost right there as we missed the wild card by 3 or 4 games. It pains me to see that our division rival and our crosstown rivals, the New York Yankees, will both represent the World Series. And I think the Yankees, as they do so often, win a World Series every so often, will pull away with this year's 2019 World Series. But it would be a great series between the Braves and the Yankees. But I think the Yankees pulls it out. Before I close, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the great fight that took place on Saturday night with my guy, Errol Spence and Shawn Porter. What a fight that was. It was a great fight. It was everything that I thought, except I didn't think it would be as close. Ladies and gentlemen, Shawn Porter came to fight. Anybody who's ever heard me talk about Shawn Porter, then they're going to know what I'm about to say. For those who never heard me, I'm going to tell you. I would never want to fight a Shawn Porter. I don't care how good I am in the ring. Shawn Porter is a relentless fighter. He has no talent as far as like anything that's a specialty. He doesn't have a specialty punch. He doesn't have a left hook or uppercutter or right cross. He doesn't have a snapping jab. He does not. His best weapon, his best talent is he's relentless and he never moves back. All he does is come forward. He throws punches. Sometimes they wild. They connect. He's strong. They hurt. Unbelievable. Heart, competitor, and person. Very humble. Wasn't salty after the win. In the ring, at least. Hat tips off to him. Errol Spence was just a better fighter. I believe the knockdown really secured the victory. And that's the danger of a Shawn Porter, is that as he comes forward a lot and he's swinging, sometimes he's left open and he can get caught with one, a flash knockdown. You know, and it could be just enough for the opponent to sway the judges. But that was a great fight. Errol Spence Jr., to my surprise, fought in a phone book. I thought he would, stay on the outside, jab him to death, come in with occasionally. But he fought a Porter fight, And he made the fight a lot closer than it needed to be. But at the end of the day, he showed he can fight that style. And he came away with the victory. And to me, I didn't think it was as cool. I don't think he was down on any score. He should not have been down at all on any scorecard. I thought he should have been ahead on all scorecards. But was it a close fight? I had him winning maybe 9-3 going into the fight. Easily 7-5, possibly 8-4. But it was a good fight, very entertaining fight. If I am Spence, I am not entertaining a rematch. It looks like maybe him and Danny Garcia might sign up for a fight. That will be a good look. I like Danny Garcia, but I don't think he's going to be able to take the punches of Errol Spence. Errol Spence showed that he can take a punch and give some punches. I like him in a Danny Garcia match. I'm taking Errol Spence. He is climbing up, if he's not already there, pound for pound, the best boxer in the sport. You got Canelo and BoneCrusher coming up in a month from today. That's going to be entertaining. And then 3 weeks later, you got the rematch of Wilder and Ortiz. That was a great fight the first time around. Should be another good fight. I'm surprised Wilder's taking this fight because he did get hurt by Ortiz, even though he finished Ortiz. But Ortiz is not a bum. He's not a bum at all, to say the least. Should be an entertaining fight. Well, that's going to do it. I appreciate Sean, Dust Easy for calling up and having their insight and having some thoughts. And I appreciate all of you who chimed in, gave some comments, asked some questions. From me to you, you have a blessed day. Peace and blessings. And we'll do this again. Thanks for tuning in to Chopping It Up with Ramel.